All right, welcome back to Business Today. And just to recap, our top story of the day is in regards to modest palm prices, where starting today, Kenyans are paying slightly cheaper at the pump, going by the latest review by EPRA. Now, super petrol and diesel prices dropped by 5 shillings per litre respectively, with kerosene decreasing by 4 shillings and 82 cents. A litre of super petrol is now retailing at 207 shillings and 36 cents, diesel 196 shillings and 47 cents, and that of kerosene at 194 shillings and 23 cents. And these prices are, of course, inclusive of 16% VAT on fuel and excess duty adjustment. And at this particular moment, I'm joined by Marshall Nyangong, who's a financial analyst. Welcome to Business Today. I mean, Marshall, when you talk about palm prices, there are so many factors at play because we are importers of fuel.
Sure.
But not only do we import, but also we tax this particular product, and we see that accumulation, of course. But your immediate reaction when you heard that EPRA had dropped fuel by 5 shillings for diesel and petrol, what is your reaction to it?
Well, I think I agree with you. There are many factors on play here, but the adjustment, I don't know what adjustment of the prices was expected. It was long coming because one of the drivers of the cost of fuel, of course, is the international crude oil prices. So looking at, because we mostly import from Middle East, looking at the Milbank futures, it has been dropping from as high as over $120 to now $77 over time. So we expected the same to be reflected in the local prices. But now I agree with you. First of all, the second big factor at play here was the cost of the foreign currency, because again, as much as there were those deals that we hear and talked about, but we still import this fuel in dollars. So the depreciation of Kenya shilling, of course, has not done any favor in terms of the cost of fuel, because now they are spending more dollars to acquire this commodity into the country. So if not for depreciation of the Kenya shilling, I think the drop could even been bigger.
Okay.
Overall, yes.
And it's very interesting because when you look at the economy, as I mentioned in my intro, you say that the economy needs to be powered. Yeah,
sure.
And there is that element of fueling the economy.
Sure.
No pun intended there.
Yes, yes.
Which is very critical. And being at a position that we are in, where there's so many factors at play in regards to pricing of our fuel, then we always see a reflection. When prices rise, we see a reflection in the real economy.
Yes.
Now, when we hit the 200 mark, that was where they say that is the straw that broke the camel's back. But we keep oscillating there. First of all, is there a possibility of these prices going lower, as the president has been mentioning?
There's always a possibility of them, or the prices even going lower and lower, because if you remember in 2020, at the height of Corona, the international crude oil prices dropped to below, sometimes even $10 per barrel. So if currently we are looking at $77 per barrel, if it drops further to maybe 40 or 30, then the same could be reflected locally. But unfortunately, we may never see anything below 150 or 100 in the near future, mainly because of the taxes that we have, of course, loaded. I think you already talked about them, the VAT, the excise duty, and so on and so forth. All this now contribute to making the fuel generally expensive. But again, you also appreciate the cost of demurrage, of cost of basically accommodating fuel and maybe bring it all the way to the cities where we expect it. So we're talking of the pipeline costs and all others. But I think the more interesting factor is what we talked about already, the multiplier effect of what we are seeing. Fuel is a cost driver to many other commodities, to many other activities in the economy. Looking at the transportation, every time the cost of fuel jumps upward, the transporters automatically load that to the cost of transport. If it's goods or even services like even the air tickets sometimes will increase. the buses to the upcountry, you'll see the prices increasing. So that is one, but the major one is usually the cost of production in our factories, because now fuel has an impact on the cost of electricity, but some factories actually use fuel directly for manufacturing. So all that is usually loaded. So at the end of the day, you realize that the moment the cost of fuel increases, all other items tend to jump in the same way.
Definitely.
Yes.
And the reverse of that, of which majority of Kenyans normally wait, if I pay 100 bob from town to, for example, Kasarani or
Sure.
Thika,
Yes.
If fuel has come down, rarely do we see a price adjustment downwards.
Yes, in economics, we usually have a concept saying that prices are sticky downwards. So the prices will happily increase because of the increase in fuel. But when the fuel drops, you'll never see that one being adjusted. Unfortunately, that's the well-established concept in economics. It's very, very difficult to adjust prices downward, whether it's wages, whether it's the price of commodities, whether it's the price of, for example, you're already talking of electricity. As much as the fuel is increasing, one of they have been blaming the cost of fuel as one of the reason why electricity prices has been increasing. But now that the fuel is dropping, will not. In fact, we are still hearing that they want to increase the cost of electricity. So,
Definitely.
yes, unfortunately, that it is.
Yeah, and you know, I'm looking at the vision of the country now,
Sure.
Marshall, and we're being told that as a country we have to change our ways. For the longest time, we've been going down a wrong path. Now, this is not even touching on national debt, but just the way we balance our books and do our trade as a country. We're being told now it's time to pursue export-led growth, where it can help solve a myriad of challenges at a go. First of all, there is a level of creation jobs within the economy. There is also the aspect of if we can do more exports, it is to do with currency depreciation. It is sort of well handled because we can easily get more dollars when we sell more outside other than demand and buy more dollars.
Sure.
So looking at that and tying in this issue of pump prices, might there be sort of a reverse psychology where the government can say, how about we try as much as possible, not only look at these many factors that impact our production and our export, but even this fuel, lower it so much in the process, sort of improve local production and therefore export-led growth.
I agree with you, no, and I think the concept you're bringing about is perfectly well established. I think that's what some of the Asian giants that are today becoming first world countries, that's the concept they actually use. They made their cost of local production very cheap. And talking of local production, they were targeting the cost of energy and the cost of labor. So unfortunately in Kenya, the cost of energy, which is a big component in industrial manufacturing, generally manufacturing as a whole, we haven't really, in fact, we don't really give it enough thought. We just think that because we need more taxes, let's load them on the fuel side. Unfortunately, and even if you look at the numbers coming from the National Bureau of Statistics, the manufacturing component as a component of GDP has been dropping year in, year out. In fact, currently I think it's the lowest ever in the last 10 years because now we are more into importing because we can't produce locally. Why can't we produce locally is because the cost of production locally is very expensive, and the most important aspect in that production cost is electricity and fuel. So I agree with you fully. If the country want to create jobs locally, if the country want to produce more items locally so that we reduce dependence on the importing of goods, then we have to look at local manufacturing. I want to give an example. Your neighbor here called Yana Tire. Back not long time ago, they used to produce tires locally. Currently, almost 100% of tires in Kenya are imported. The question is why? Because they could not sustain the local production. Sorry for my voice.
It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So local production is critical, but we have to incentivize that.
Sure.
And since fuel is at the center of it, energy as we call it, it's time that we reconsider that. But again, the country is back to the corner. Because we have all these obligations to meet.
Sure.
And fuel is one of those products that it is an essential, so we'll always import. So there is a level of guarantee if I tax that, I can get something from that. And you've seen even the issue of VAT, doubling that to 16%. Skyrocketed the fuel to the 200 shilling mark. But the government is also getting its cut. So, as an analyst, should the government balance? Because it has obligations, it needs to raise revenue. At the same time, there is this element of such factors of production need to be kept as low as possible if we are to achieve the bigger goal of export-led economy.
Well, I think I agree with you. In the short run, of course, the government is a little bit fixed. Because now, as you were saying, that this obligation that they have to meet, but now they have to put in policies that target long term, because again, these are not things that you can achieve in the next 1 day or 1 year. You have to strategically position Kenya as a country that wants to manufacture and export to its neighbors, so that whatever you're going to manufacture in Kenya should be cheaper compared to the same item coming, for example, from China. So that is not something that we just wake up and do. You have to be very, very strategic about it. And one, as I've already said, one of the reasons is one of the way of doing that is making sure that the cost of production is cheap. Of course, the business environment as a whole has to be addressed. So you have to ask yourself, when a foreign investor is coming, let's say in Africa, is he or she going to consider Kenya as the best investment option or country, or will he maybe go to Rwanda or Ethiopia or any other country? So as a destination, are we able to attract investors? And there are many factors to that, of course. We already say that the cost of establishing the bureaucracy involved in that, of course, has to be addressed. But of course, generally the cost of doing business itself. I think you have seen the Association of Manufacturers already complaining about the general cost of production, whether it comes to now the wages that have to pay people, because now there are so many other levies that have been ordered on that, but also the general cost of goods to be manufactured in terms of the input energy, input cost. Generally, the whole cost of that is not adding up, and that you have to now see, are you now chasing away investors or are you attracting them? So overall, in terms of now the current obligation that the government has and they have to meet, I've seen countries, because we are not really in this situation as Kenya alone, different countries have different approach of dealing with the debt issue. For example, one of them, of course, is renegotiating with the multilateral lenders, or basically your partners, and maybe seeing if you can stretch these debts, or maybe you can suspend some interest, or instead of now harming your economy by overburdening them with the taxes. Because Noah, the argument here is that the more local production, the more industry you have locally, in the long run, the more taxes you will generate, because you have more people employed and you'll have more goods being produced locally, and therefore you'll be able to meet these taxes. But if you make the local production very, very expensive, and therefore you discourage industries, many of them end up closing, you even collect less. So even if you're struggling to pay this debt, but you're collecting less, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. So in the long run, I think the policy makers have to really balance that very, very well.
Okay.
Yes, in my view.
And one of the reactions that I saw, because we've seen some Kenyans speak about this particular drop in regards to palm prices. They say when they were shooting the prices up, we were going up by 20 shillings,
Sure.
And all of a sudden, when you're bringing it down, you're bringing it by 5 shillings, 4 shillings, 2 shillings. they're saying it's high time also we see those high drops. Now you've said these are attached to factors sometimes that are sometimes beyond out of our control, or maybe not in line with the government of the day in regards to the taxes attached to the product. But you're saying in regards to that dropping to the ranges of 150, 160, it's still untenable for the year 2024?
It's untenable mainly for two reasons. Of course, one is, of course, we already talked of the taxes. The government will want to raise as much as possible because of those current obligations. But again, mainly because the international crude oil prices is not dropping as would have been expected. But mostly, we still have to pay in dollars, and the Kenya shilling has been... So for example, a year ago, the Kenya shilling was trading at an average of 120, 125 shillings per dollar. So you can imagine if you had $1 billion Kenya shilling converted to dollar, how much fuel could you buy with that compared to now, when the Kenya shilling is now going at 160 shilling per dollar. So for now, you have to buy very, very less with the same amount of Kenya shilling. So unless we stabilize, of course, our foreign exchange as well, and it's difficult because I think the president has also pronounced himself on that matter and said that the forex was being managed at the CBK. They were using our foreign reserve to artificially keep Kenya shilling at a level that was not sustainable. So they left it to be free to the market. That's why now we are in 160 almost. I don't know if we'll be going to 170 or not, but that has a consequence, because now the other guys who are managing it and making sure that it's not beyond 130,
yes,
they could say that no, because we are import-dependent economy, we are getting import goods at cheaper prices. Now that it's free-floating, imported goods are extremely expensive. Normally, that will mean that if the imported goods are very, very expensive, it means that it should actually encourage local production, because now if let's say I want to import cement internationally versus buying it locally, I should opt for the local option because the international option has become very expensive. But unfortunately, no, we don't. So much are still imported. We don't produce many things locally. We'll be surprised that we sometimes even import a matchstick.
Yeah, I know. That example of matchstick and toothpick is always there.
Toothpick is just bamboo, a bamboo tree just cut in pieces. We can't produce that locally.
Mashallah. I think we should raise some capital. We go into matchstick production, But again, I really appreciate you. Thank you for making time to help us understand this issue of palm prices and the ripple effect in regards to the economy. Thank you for your time.
It's always a pleasure being with you. No.
Asante sana. Yes. Marshall Nyang'oro is a financial analyst. It tells me that yes, even as the crude prices calm down, there's a likelihood that we see further drop when it comes to fuel prices. But at the same time, with the taxation attached to this particular product we call fuel, then it almost will keep swinging around the 200 mark if we're not careful. But the president has been very optimistic, saying that these prices will continue dropping, hopefully, as time goes by, especially for the year 2024. But that is matters fuel and the ripple effect of it. But now let's take a tangent into